Hello, everyone. Hello. Hello, Tom. Welcome to Stephanie's MarshStream. Oops. I've got a dog problem. Oh, dear. Anyway, welcome to MarshStream. Thank you so much for coming. We have a lot of things coming up tonight, but most importantly, we are going to have our special guest, Tom Ammiano. But first, let me first tell you about what's coming up for the rest of the week. On Friday night, we have bingo with Josh Kornbluth, the most hilarious bingo I've ever participated in. Maybe the only bingo that I've ever participated in. On the weekend, we're going to be streaming Charlie Varon's Genome Out of the Bottle, a real hilarious video. You might want to check in. We have Monday Night March next week, and then Tuesday we have Tell It on Tuesday, and then on Wednesday we have Solo Arts Heal with Adam Strauss and Gail Schickley hosting. But tonight I am so thrilled that we have Tom Ammiano on. Tom, as you know, is a revolutionary, a renegade. He was a teacher. He came out as a teacher. He was a supervisor. He was a state senator. He performed at the Marsh. And now he's written a book, Kiss My Gay Ass. So let's welcome Mr. Tom Ammiano. Let's give him a big shake of hands. Woo!
Hello there. Can you hear me?
I can. How are you, Tom?
Good, good. Considering,
Yeah.
I hope that the Marsh is doing well. You know, we all love the Marsh. It's our extended family, and we're very protective of it, as you know. So,
thank you. How are you doing during the shuttering in, the quarantine?
Yeah, well, you know, you get a little schizo. You know, mostly for us, you know, we're older. It's an inconvenience, which is quite different than what it's like for a lot of other people who, you know, don't have that privilege. So it kind of tears at your heart. And I'm kind of grateful too, to, you know, be able to be home with someone I love. And, but I'm also angry. I go through it together, you know, with you know who, Caligula and all. And so it's a mixed bag, but we'll get through it.
Yeah.
But it's going to take a lot of personal resources on our part too.
I think so. So you're with the supervisors. Tell us what you think they should be doing right now, and how San Francisco has been handling this. And I'm going to just go I'll be right back. Okay. But I can hear you.
All right. You can see me? Well, in terms of the supervisors, I think that there is a concerted effort, but mostly from a select few. Haney, Hillary, I'm going to forget somebody and be killed, Shimon, who have been very, very good on finding the hotel rooms, which is a very, controversial issue here in San Francisco, the unhoused. But it seems that with the virus, a very logical thing to do is to house people in the empty hotel rooms. And I think we dropped the ball on that a bit. And so now I think the whole thing with City Hall is you never want to keep running in place, and you want to look at the bar. How high is the bar? So the bar in the White House is pretty low. So when other politicians articulate in full sentences or with humor, or even if the solution is not perfect, one tends to be proud of a city. In our case, I am very proud of San Francisco, but very, very worried about, for instance, the Mission District has one of the highest concentrations of the virus. And, you know, a lot of that is reflective of class and ethnicity and all that. So I don't think we're going to resolve all that. But like we say, when you're a teacher, this really sucks, but maybe there's something good that can come out of it. And so maybe we'll have a solution for the unhoused, and maybe we'll have single payer. It seems to be very obvious that we need something with the medical system not working down. And yeah, I miss Bernie. I miss him a lot. I also miss Larry David, who used to do a spot on imitation of Bernie. It was always great. Jane, where's my underwear? So anyway, we'll see. I'm not a Pollyanna. But when you only have a certain amount of time left, I'm not going to drop dead tomorrow, but it's a long, long time from May to December. You're hoping for the best, especially for the younger people, even the obnoxious ones. Oh, did I say that?
So, what do you think? How long do you think we should be shuttering in place for? And how long do you think California?
I don't know. It's a movable feast. Just like in politics, because there is a political side to the virus, you never know what's going to happen. You never know what upsetting thing or who will leave the room or who. So there's the unknown. And then there's, I think we need to be cautious. We need to go slow. And it could be through the summer. I've been accused of future tripping. You're doing something and then you start to think ahead and you're bumming yourself out and everything. So it's good to be realistic. And at the same time, a little bit of denial isn't going to hurt. A little bit of humanity that in that way, trying to not worry too much about the fall, but worry about what's happening today and how maybe by the fall or earlier, we'll be out of this mess. But it's going to be a while, and we're very resilient. We're very, very resilient. And again, a lot of us have the tools to be resilient. And some of us don't. So that means we have to, with our tools, help them. And we got to start in San Francisco anyway.
So just what do you think about all these protesters saying we shouldn't be quarantined and things like that?
I say kiss my gay ass. When I was in Sacramento, there is a group like that. They're very, they come from different places. But the class issue, this was about vaccinations, but it's the same people. And the class differences were fascinating. There were upper class women from Marin who were anti-vax, and there were very blue collar people who lived in recreational vehicle. I mean, you had everything in terms of the spectrum, but those two particularly were extremely, shall we say, focused on this issue and did a lot of inappropriate things. So, and some of it's the polarization that we have in the country anyway, but they are annoying as shit. And sometimes it is education, and sometimes it's just blind fury. And I don't see that being productive at all. And the sad part is some of them will be infected probably from that rally, one could guess, and then go on to infect other people who were, totally innocent. So it's democracy and it ain't pretty.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What parallels don't you draw from the AIDS crisis and
well, Christy, a lot on the gut punch level, a lot. We knew that, and then also a little bit of resentment. It's like, okay, now you know what it was like. It did affect a certain population, so it didn't go as general as the virus. And that's a distinct thing. And they didn't close schools or banks or restaurants. God knows, maybe they should have. We didn't know what was happening. But in terms of the oppression and that feeling of helplessness and really worried about everybody's welfare, and then really being angry at the lack of action, very similar. So those parallels are there.
Yep. So let's talk about this amazing thing you've just done. You've just published a book.
Oh,
Why
it
would you? Hmm?
was a lot of service.
Tell us the service. I want to know what the service was.
It's because my mind, and there are a lot of people we know, especially from my generation, my mind's like an amusement park. And you want to impart certain things. You want to tell people certain things, whether they want to listen or not. And mostly you remember, I was there when that happened, and that's not the way it happened. So instead of going crazy about things I think were revised or whatever my lens was, it felt good and cathartic to get that down in print. But it's a discipline, as you all know, anybody who writes. And it was the hardest thing is just putting your ass in the chair. They always say that. And I had great support from Tim Redmond of The Guardian fame and 48 Hills, and also John Gollinger, local gadfly, I think he's referred to. He's done so much for the arts, by the way, if you know the WPA murals at Coit Tower. You know, when I first came to San Francisco, they told me go to Coit Tower, and I did. And there was a statue of Columbus there. Which, you know, now, of course, there's a lot of, okay. But it was those days, and I think it's still there. And he looks very noble, and this, you know, cape is flowing, and his chin is up, and somebody had put a joint in his mouth. So I thought, welcome to San Francisco. That was my welcome. Yeah, so John and Tim were very instrumental, and we figured out a process that worked. And we went to a number of publishers, as you have to do, and got our rejections, and finally figured out, you know, The Guardian could publish it, which was very generous of them. And there's a number of people who are probably watching that donated to that. We did kind of a go-to because we had expenses, and we wanted to go on a shoestring, but we still need, you know, some guilt. And people were very generous, and that's really why the book is here today.
So what was your process of writing it? How long did it take you? How long did you put your ass in the chair for? Was it every day?
Well, let's see, I'm 78, so it's been taking about 8 decades. I think we had about over 30 sessions, and Tim would record, and John would transcribe and also be recording, but on his laptop. And then I would hold forth. And we laughed a lot. And for them, the challenge was I'm on one subject now, and then I'll jump to another one. And so, you know, trying to figure out all the timelines. But it was a great gift because it was being done. And that was the most important thing. So that was our, in quotes, process.
So when you were, talking and transcribing, how many pages did you end up in? How did you decide what ended up in this wonderful book?
Well, I think I asked, well, John for one, and Tim, and then Gene feels Tim's, if they would kind of look at it and do some editing, and which is a chore. And then they did, and they gave me some suggested changes and questions. What the hell does this mean? Because you're prone to be familiar, use the familiar voice, and people have no idea what the hell you're talking about. And then I took that, and then I either took their suggestion or modified it or left something out. So that's how it happened.
Sounds wonderful. Did you want to read a little excerpt from it right now?
Excerpt. I love that word. Excerpt.
Excerpt.
Yes. Did you get everything?
Yes. Thank you.
Certainly. I'll expect your review in the morning at 5.
At 5 a.m. You're getting it.
On my desk. Oh, so I thought I'd do, since everybody with the Marsh is performing, and I performed there, and my career at comedy. I don't know if everybody can see this. Can you see this? This is me as Pee Wee Herman, another one of my heroes. Well, you probably can't see it the way I want you to, but there it is. I am kind of a Luddite, everybody knows. So, chapter 7. Hello, my name is Diane Feinstein. Oh, by the way, we're going to be making an audio version of the book.
Are you reading it?
Oh, yes. I think that's probably why we're doing it, because of the voice and the tone. Okay. And the tones. Comedy. It was aspirational on my part to get into comedy. I always loved comedy as a kid. My family's pretty funny too, mostly intentionally. When I was a kid thinking about comedy, someone who was evaluating a performance I did said to me, you know, you're a funny in the moment guy. That observation struck home with me because I think that there was always something I could do. The aspirational part came from the watching lots of TV on comics on the screen, black and white screen, Bob Hope, Milton Berle, Steve Allen, the women, Betty White, Joan Davis, Lucille Ball. I loved them all. Comedy kept me company. As a teenager in New Jersey at 11 o'clock at night, there was not a lot to do in the long summers. I would stay up until the middle of the night and watch comedy shows. I just fucking loved it. Comedy for me also became something else. I weaponized it to protect me from bullies. I was pretty good with the acerbic stuff. Too good, in fact. It almost got me killed a few times. In school, in New Jersey, when you stood up to bullies by saying something that was a put down to them, they came after you to kill you. To survive in one piece, I was forced to find a different way home every day from school. It was a small Catholic school, and the homophobia among the teenage boys was very bad. There was no place to hide because in those days, you didn't want to tell your parents you were being bullied for being gay because you were ashamed, and I didn't think they could handle it. I used to get the bullies back in other ways. One day, I finally had enough of one guy. I was in the candy store when all the bullying started up again. The guy was much bigger than me. He was stalking me saying, oh, you little faggot, you little sissy. Suddenly, I don't know where it came from inside me. I just need him. And in the back of his leg, he was tall. And when I need him, he just collapsed into the ground. I didn't know. I went, what happened? And the bully collapsed and he started to cry. Oh, he hurt me. He hurt me. Well, the candy store owner came over, and guess what? He yelled at me, kicked me out of the candy store for taking down the bully. That was my first. I didn't know I had superpowered knees. So comedy, humor was a big part of my life from early on. The other aspect of it was irony. I loved irony. My family was always ironic too in how they framed stuff. It was just part of our regular conversations. How's that? Can you hear me? I can't hear you.
There I am.
There you are.
I didn't want to make any noise while you were reading that wonderful thing.
Good. I hope that was.
That is, you know, that was the beginning of your anti-bully.
Yeah, it was interesting because, you know, things aren't right, but you're a kid, you know, and I did have some friends, and I write about them in the book. A guy named Frank Cody. We were in elementary school together, and he always stood up for me and all that. And I was in the second grade, and we had Valentine's Day. So you're supposed to bring a Valentine and then put it in a little box, and the nun would scurry around. By the way, the nun's name was Sister Nazareta. You know, some things you don't make up. So I wrote one to Frank Cody. I just thought he was a nice guy, and he was friendly, and we were in the second grade, you know. And I put it in the box, and she pulled it out, and she said, you don't do this. And she scolded me in front of the class. And poor Frank Cody, what did he do? You know, and I got so upset. I ran out of the class and ran across the street. In those days, there was a template for parishes. So you had the actual church, then you had the rectory, from the Latin word rectum. Then you have the convent, and then you have the elementary school and the high school. It's a big deal. So I ran out of the elementary school across the street into the church. And in those days, they had the candles that you could light. So I figured I was really in a lot of trouble, so I better light a lot of candles. So I lit every candle, and you were supposed to pay. So my punishment was I had to make restitution the rest of the year by doing errands. So there you are. It's very Kafka.
So
And poor Frank Cody, you know.
So you had to make restitution for lighting all those candles.
Yeah, it was like 25 candles. It was a penny each. I had to do, I don't know, something like that. Well, that was after you're called in the office.
Wow. So you went from day one fighting back at bullies and winning, even unexpectedly winning from the bullies. What did that
It was unexpectedly.
What did that teach you in life?
Well, I think it's just by osmosis. I think the family, for all its challenges and dysfunctions, they had something, you know, so it's nature versus nurture. And then I had a couple of things happen that made me a little more laser about that gift I guess I inherited from the family. One was I was cross-eyed. I had strabismus. So if this is all TMI, I'm sorry. So I had to wear a patch over my eye until the 5th grade. And that wasn't fun. And they got me a lot of bad attention. And then the fact that, you know, everything was in the wrists with me, you know, people just assumed I was a little bit of a sissy, a little bit. So those were, yeah, and treated me poorly because of that. So, you know, by osmosis, maybe. And then I will say, for all my criticism of the Catholic Church, there was an underlying current, and it was fucked up, trust me, but of sense of community and charity. I never articulated those words or anything like that, but I think that surrounded me. Now, you know, everybody manifests the results of that in a different way. And for me, it was anger. And then aside from being scared shitless, and also, you know, how do you make this right? You know, I left. That's how I made it. I left New Jersey and came to San Francisco.
So how did you know to come to San Francisco? What made you come here?
In utero, come to me. What is it? South Pacific. I actually, well, you know, knowing I was gay and then trying to figure out the Michigas and what are you going to do? And I knew New Jersey was not the answer. And, you know, New York was fabulous, but New York was way too close to everything, the church, the Italians. And I read in a magazine that San Francisco had something called Turkish baths, and that known homosexuals were known to go there. And I thought, well, where's my ticket?
Your ticket.
That was the titillation, you know. And of course, it was also the furthest I could get away and still be in the country.
So titillation to Turkish baths.
Huh?
Titillations to Turkish baths to travel to
known homosexuals. Yeah. And so that was it. And wow. That's how it's been ever since.
So did you go to college here?
No, I went to Seton Hall University, which is now co-ed, but it was all boys, men, and it was very Catholic, which I was used to. I always said I went to 16 years of Catholic school, and it's made me the man I am today. So and I hated it. I hated every minute of it. I'm not scholarly. It was repressive. I couldn't get laid. I thought maybe I'd go straight, and then that went right out the window during a gym class. And interestingly enough, and it was mostly what they call a day hop school. We call it a commuter school today. It was really guys, men, you know, very Italian and from Jersey City, you know, it went fast, and that was the biggest gift. But they had a number of priests there, and they had a divinity school. And the divinity school was called Sally's Alley in recognition of the fact that a lot of the priests were probably gay, and not only gay, but Kelly. And I do remember some of them. Actually, they were very nice. So they were a lot of fun. But, that institutionalization of homophobia was there. And so this whole, the thing about the Catholic Church and kids and all that, it's been around, it's been recognized. It's just amazing. Just nobody was doing anything about it. Sally, that was a divinity school.
So you came here, and then what did you do? We're going to go through your life here, Tom.
Well, it's probably TMI, but I won't jump around. But a lot of it's in the book, and then I'll go fast. But I had worked at camps for the disabled as summer jobs in college. So when I was almost graduated, I came to California, and I worked in the camp in Cupertino. And I still have lifelong friends from that experience. And then after that, I went to graduate. I was going to graduate school at San Francisco State in special ed from my work with the camp. There's a fabulous movie out, everybody. It's called Camp Crip, CRIP. And that's the camp I worked at in New York, in the Catskills. It's where I learned my Yiddish. It's a little bupkis. It was a great experience. It was in 1960. And then the people who started the disability rights movement and 504 and the ADA were campers at that same camp. I was 10 years earlier, but I like to think I left little messages for them because, they're great. So that's Camp Crip. So after I got the master's in special ed, I wanted to go into the Peace Corps. I thought I just jumped around. I went into the Peace Corps before, and I didn't make it. And I went in deep shame back to California and finished up the summer at a camp for the handicapped called Camp Easter Seal. Then I went to grad school. Then I went to Vietnam for 2 years, and I taught English as a second language in a small town during the war. It was actually a Quaker-based organization. The Peace Corps had modeled it. It was called International Voluntary Services, and it was a very transformative 2 years. And no, I wasn't the Avon representative. My friend Judy Lesner always says Tom was the Avon representative. And when I came back, I finished up the credential and got involved with the free speech movement. Mario Savio, my heartthrob. Everybody thought I was a student at Berkeley. I lived in Berkeley, but I never went to Berkeley. And I worked at the Recreation Center for the Handicapped. Then I got, some teaching jobs finally with the Unified School District. And then got involved with the gay movement as an openly gay teacher. I didn't like what I heard on the playground, but more than that, I didn't like what I heard in the teacher's room. So forget it, right? So San Francisco was very eclectic. The peace movement was happening. The women's movement was happening. The gay movement was percolating. Civil rights, you name it, we had it. And it just, we caught fire. People caught fire. And we started an organization called Bagel, Bay Area Gay Liberation, which only lasted 1 year because everybody fought, it was pretty sectarian. But from there, I got involved in electoral politics through teaching. Kids who only spoke Spanish and were monolingual were labeled developmentally disabled, and they weren't. They were smart. They just didn't speak English. And so that became a cause. And then from there, the gay movement as it was, and making gay friends, that was the best thing, making queer friends, men and women. It's like an extended family. And it was great to hook up because, as John Waters says, he was glad he was brought up Catholic because sex will always be dirty.
Gosh. So.
And then Harvey came along and started that movement, and I was involved.
Well, what a legacy. So then you got elected. You got elected.
Yeah, I ran 3 times. I don't know if people know that. I ran in 79. It was a suicide mission. But, Harvey had just been murdered. The school district was full of people who wanted the gay vote but wouldn't name a school after Harvey. Plus I had bones to pick as a teacher. So I ran in 79 and I got my ass kicked. Every incumbent beat me all. And so then that's when the epiphany was, I think I'll go into comedy. So right about that time, I stayed involved politically, but I wasn't ever going to run for office again. And we started at the Valencia Rose with Ron Lanza and Hank Wilson and Leah Delaria and Marga and Kelly Cattell. I list them all in my book because they were all courageous. We were really working, hey kids, let's have a show, being openly gay and trying to build an audience and have a career. And as that began to not pan out in the way I wanted years later, it was suggested that I run for school board. And I combined the performing with the run. And I raised money, not for myself, but for a library bond. And I even dressed up. We had a fundraiser and I dressed up as Pee Wee Herman. And my friend was there, Missy Vaughn. And we raised money for the library bond. And I thought, well, that's it. And when the votes were tallied, I came out right outside the money. And that's when close friends said, we know you want to be on Johnny Carson. Guess what? Not going to happen. Why don't you consider this? Because you're good and that's how I made my entree. So informed through activism, gay and education and all the other Michigan stuff. And then ran 3 times, the second time pretty good. And the last time was we came in number 1 and citywide on the Board of Ed. But who's counting? It was called the Lavender Sweep. Because I always get this wrong, but I think that Migden won and Leal won and Achtenberg won and Donna Hitchens became the first openly queer lesbian judge, and I won as number 1. I won my race, so that was called the Lavender Sweep. And we also took care of domestic partners then, which was the in utero same-sex marriage. We put that on the ballot because everybody had gone to Dianne Feinstein vetoed it and the Catholic Church preached against it. And finally we got tired of it and we put that on the ballot along with my race and the others. So that's why it's called the Lavender Sweep, because we won. And we had to work hard. It was good though. Yeah.
You all did it and you won. What would we be like now if you hadn't?
Huh? Yeah, I know. Yeah. Well, what we're doing now is looking over our shoulder, because those things that we got and earned are now in jeopardy again. Through Caligula in DC, through whatever that guy's name is, Pence. He can't even say LGBT, right? BLT or something. But it is scary. And, Milk always warned about that. I think that a lot of that, he was influenced, Milk, by his Jewish background and the Holocaust, which had happened when he was a young man, and relatives. And people sometimes forget that about him, but I think that informed him too about, never forgetting this can't happen. And then he inspired other people, to adopt those feelings. So I think we owe him a big debt, myself. And a lot of other people do, yeah. They're recognizing it, so it's nice for that. Except I don't want him commercialized. I don't want to see Harvey Milk beer, Harvey Milk marijuana. And believe me, there are people nibbling at the edges about that. Hello, it's called assimilation. We always say, take the ass out of assimilation. Be different. That's your thing. That's your contribution. Don't apologize, as you're leveling the fucking playing field. I've never seen a playing field that's leveled, by the way. Have you? No, divots. Divots.
Do you want to read another excerpt about your political stuff?
Yeah. Hopefully, I'll have one marked off for you. Okay.
Well, it can be about anything.
Yeah. I had one because I thought I was going to do one. That's right. Okay. I moved to 16th and Castro in 1968. If you walk down Castro Street almost at any time, you would probably see Harvey Milk physically going about his business, either posting flyers or at work in his Castro camera store. By the way, he was the worst businessman. The store never made a profit, as if I remember. One of Harvey's flyers that I saw said, "There are businesses in the Castro that you patronize that are homophobic." Then it listed several stores. One was called Mike's Liquors. And it urged people to stop shopping there. So people did. And Mike's Liquors lost a lot of money in clientele. Well, guess what? In a week or two, those stores said, "Oh, of course we're hiring drag queens." They totally reversed course. It was a pure business decision. It was brilliant, straightforward strategy on Harvey's part. And what did it take? A little flyer. I fucking loved it. People underestimated what gay people were really thinking. They thought that we all be docile and just say, "Take my money," and discriminate against me. Oh, well. Harvey came to my attention by doing that. But the most significant thing he did involved standing up to the police. I always had problems with cops and how they treated everybody. In those days, straight punks would come into the neighborhood, usually around 2 a.m. They would start to beat up on some poor gay guy. If you called the cops would come from Mission Street Station and they would just hassle the gay guy. Then they would hassle you for bothering them. So Harvey Milk stood up to that crap. In the Castro, the queens poured out of the bars about 2 a.m. Of course, it's a sidewalk culture and people don't just disperse immediately. They stand around and talk. They're loaded. They do a little dance when they cruise for somebody to go home with. There was a particular evening when the bars emptied. Some straight punks pulled up, jumped out of their car, and started to wail on a gay guy. Fortunately, there were some people there who had alarm whistles on them, and thanks to Hank Wilson, distributed them. They started whistling for help. They drew attention. We all rushed over to see where the gay guy was beaten. The straight punks were gone. Once the whistles went off, zoom, they were out of here. The cops showed up, but when they did, the interaction with the beaten up guy was not positive. The guys treated him like he had done something wrong by getting beaten up. They were very snide to him and very, very rude. Suddenly, out of the crowd came the Jewish cavalry, Harvey Milk. He says to the cops, "What are you doing here? Don't you understand this man needs help? What's happening?" My heart leaped into my throat. What's happening? I thought. I really don't like cops, and I always wanted to stand up to them, but I'm afraid I'm going to get killed if I do that. Right then and there was almost an epiphany about who Harvey was and who he could be. How's that? Am I still on? Hello there. We'll get there. I'm a Luddite and I'm finite.
I'm coming.
Ramadan. Happy Ramadan.
How am I muted? Can you hear me?
No, dear, you're never muted, please.
I know, but you
The
can't
mother,
hear me, right?
the mother of the marsh.
Marsh Mama.
That varies in every positive way that it can be.
Thank
The
you.
nurturer.
The nurturer. Well,
Yeah.
It was wonderful having you perform at the Marsh. I want to know if anything about the performance you did and working at the Marsh had an impact on this fabulous book.
Well, I suppose it did because it's kind of a memoirish, and you just have to figure out the things that you're excited about may be very boring to other people. So I think in that way it helped shape the book and the timeline of the book. And uh, everybody has a lot, especially if you live this long. So I think the show helped. Also, it's a live audience. So if they don't like it, tough, baby. Or if they give you the silence, then you get flop sweat. Flop sweat is something I wrote about in the book, and I think you'll enjoy it.
So I remember at the end of the performance, you had that whole thing about Arnold Schwarzenegger. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, yes, my boyfriend. He recently was on TV and referred to this particular incident and lied about it and got people on side. So Arnold did a bad thing. He vetoed the gay marriage bill. We could have had gay marriage legislatively through Mark Leno. I wasn't in the assembly yet. And imagine Prop 8 and all that money and heartache. We could have avoided all that. So I wasn't thinking loving thoughts about him. He also vetoed some other things. He vetoed a lot of Democratic bills that dealt with social justice and et cetera. So every year there's a big hoo-ha dinner at a fancy hotel, and all the workers come. It's quite lovely. And it's gratis to them. And, they're hotel maids and they're bus operators. I'm represented by labor, and it's a labor dinner, a Democratic labor dinner, and spirits are high and people are laughing. And it was great. So somebody got the idea to invite Arnold, because apparently he was in the building, which was probably one of the dumbest ideas since people voting for Donald Trump. And he actually thought in this crowd, and there are hundreds and hundreds of people, that he could get away with it. And people were in shock because he went up to the microphone, "Hi, I'm Arnold." And people were in shock. There was this silence. He tried to make a joke, and then the crowd went crazy. Epithets and F you and all that. And I added, "Kiss my gay ass," I said. Well, apparently that got picked up. Everything is cameras. So it made kind of a wave for a while. Think of my poor staff. "Who's this guy to kiss my gay ass?" So a very nothing burger legislative bill. He vetoed everything anyway, but this was the Republicans voted for it. He vetoed it. And it was, very boilerplate. "We're sending this back because the blah, blah, blah." But then somebody really smart in my office noticed an acrostic, and the first letter of every word going vertically of every sentence was IFUCKYOU. So that started the home Megillah all over again. That was his veto. It's on record in state records. I fuck you. Of course, I said, I reject his veto and his offer. So that is that story. And I did use that in the show. And he was on a TV show recently, and the host said, "You were a politician. Did you ever lie?" And he said, "I only lied once. And that's when I said that veto message was a coincidence. But it really wasn't. We did it on purpose. And the guy who did it wasn't or something like that." So he's Arnold Schwarzenegger. So the audience, "Yeah, that's right, Arnold. Tell him I fucked you. You did the right thing."
Okay, we're going to pretty soon open this up to Q&A with the wonderful people listening to this. But if you want to have one story or one thing that you love the most, what would it be?
I think it was truly Harvey Milk's election, because we worked. It was very affirming, and I still haven't. We never really get over it, even with the murders, but you never get over either. It was the emblematic, the iconic, and the balancing out. And during that struggle to help him get elected, that's when I had the most fun. I was, you were very fulfilled. You were young. You were a disco bunny. Yes, I was a disco bunny. And you picketed, right? And then you taught in the daytime. And in the meantime, met wonderful people, lifelong friends. And of course, always Mr. Wonderful, the hottest guy who would break your heart and all that. So that was it was what I call the gay liberation period. And to me, within that story, there's many stories. So that's why I think it's so rich for me.
Well, it's a wonderful book. I haven't been able to read the whole thing. I just got it today, but I can't wait to read it all. But I think one of the things that I found the most amazing when you were performing at the Marsh was how much people loved you.
Oh, well,
how much people loved what you had done for them. It was just, you could just, when you sat in the audience, that feeling in the audience, and then people would come up to me and talk to me about it. And it was just such an amazing experience to have you performing there and seeing the love for you. And
well, they gave me a lot. And, one thing we've all learned, give back. So, there you are.
Yeah. Well, let's open this up to some questions and answers now. Brian, Mr. Producer, how are we going to do this?
All right, we've got two options here. I've got a question here from Tim. Tom, how can the people here in the audience buy your book?
Oh, well, thank you for that question. We're going to do a skywriting campaign, and then we're going to be in fortune cookies. Only kidding. We do want to respect the virus, of course. I mean, what it's done to people. So we're marketing it online currently, and it's easy. It's Kiss My Gay. I'm sorry. It's so easy that I forgot it. Kiss My Gay Ass @.com. Okay. Or you could do SFBG, San Francisco Bay Guardian @.com.
So that was kissmygayass.com. Is that how you can?
Yeah, not at. Yeah.
Kissmygayass.com.
.com.
That's how you find it.
Yes, thank you.
Or you can get it at the San Francisco.
Yeah, it's SFBG.com.
SFBG.com. Okay, great. All right.
And if anybody else has a question, if you wave your hands around, we can see you if you've got your video on, and we can get you unmuted. All right, I've got Jan Lee here. All right, you're unmuted.
Hi, actually, I'm here under an impersonation. It's Mariko. And I actually just typed in the question with the earlier instructions. But hi, Tom.
Hi, it's so nice to see you.
It is wonderful to see you.
In Sacramento, we served together, and the Republicans were pretty terrible, and some Democrats. And the Republican caucus was very white. So one time, Mariko was standing up and doing a presentation on Japanese New Year, and she talked about mochi, which is very significant during the New Year. And they looked at her with blank expressions, and she just said, "If you don't know what it is, get culturally competent." And I thought that was wonderful. We had a good time.
We had a wonderful, well, without Tom Ammiano, I would have not survived my 6 years in the assembly. In fact, many of our colleagues would attest to that. Without Tom, we would not have survived those horrible years, especially in the early days. But my question is this. I, of course, got Kiss My Gay Ass and read it cover to cover, truly was a page turner. I could not put it down. I finished it in, about 2 hours and a smidge. I want to know, is there going to be a Kiss My Gay Ass Volume 2?
Well, one never knows. Yes, but I might change the title to something else, something provocative. We can't say this is a family. This is a family, but I've had a few things suggested.
Okay.
Who knows, Mariko, if you told me half the things that we've done in our lives, I wouldn't have. I don't know. I don't know.
True.
People are positive.
Well, I loved it. So thank you very much.
Well,
And
thank
thanks
you.
to the
Arigato.
Marsh and everyone for doing this tonight. It's
Thank you
wonderful.
so much.
Right on time.
All right. We'll be talking.
We will.
All right, Tom, it looks like we have a question here from Evan. He asked, what do you think activists should be doing right now to prepare for recovery and the rebuilding in the aftermath of the coronavirus?
Well, in one way, if there's anything positive about this, some things like paid sick leave, some things like universal health care, and there'll be a host of LGBT issues because, especially for the trans community, because a lot of that, I don't want to be a buzzkill, but I think people know that a lot of that's lip service and we could also lose. So, pick something that excites you, a social justice issue, and then find out who's working on it. And then try to be a bridge. Because I think one of the not great things is we tend to silo each other. And we don't recognize the class structure. So maybe you're an environmentalist and then, and maybe you're a water preserver or whatever the issue, make sure that it helps everybody, not just the people at the top. And that was, kind of an issue with the same-sex marriage. Phyllis Lyon, God love her, she said the same thing. She goes, "Oh, marriage, we weren't thinking of that. We were thinking of healthcare and housing. Yeah, fine." So that would be important, that the different silos, it's all one issue. You probably heard me say this a million times. One of the things I respected about Harvey Milk is he connected the dots. And that's what we need to do. And that's what people can do for whatever recovery we're going to have. Other than that, a lot of bitch slapping.
Perfect. Stephanie, do we have time for one more question?
We have time for a number of questions.
We've got Joanna Rush here who's waving her hand. Joanna, you are unmuted.
Thank you. I wanted to tell Tommy that I too was in love with Frankie Cody.
No!
Yeah. And I too used to go to McGee's, which I think is the candy store.
Yeah, I forget what it was called. Grunnings.
McGee's. Oh, Grunnings was the ice cream. Yeah.
Yeah.
But
well, isn't that a trip?
And
you look beautiful.
Thank you. So do you. And
well.
Sister Nazaretta is a character in 2 of my solo plays.
See that? Who'd have thunk it? Well, it's a nice tribute to Frank because he was a very, as they used to say, stand-up guy. He was a protector. And one time the bullies, because he came over, one time the bully said to him, "What? Is he your girlfriend?" And Frank Cody, God love him, said, "Yes, he is." I just thought it was great. He was a great person. Well, it's nice to share that.
That's great. And also Lorraine Pasciuti.
Oh, yes. Lorraine didn't invite me to her party in the 7th grade, and I will never forgive her. I saw her at our 50th reunion. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, you were hilarious. I used to hang out with Jeannie Marr over on Portland Place, and they
were great, the Marrs, yeah.
Yeah, entertain us on the way home.
Were you a Rockette?
Yes.
Yes, of course.
And I think I'm the only other author, and I write about sex a lot. And
well, that's what John Waters did. You were raised Catholic. For worse, the girls, it was the worst.
Yeah, it was pretty bad.
Yeah.
But I think we're the only 2 authors who haven't been invited back.
No, and the thing is, they ask us for money too.
Oh, always.
Yeah, but they don't do any. The book I do write about the experience at Immaculate, sitting at the cafeteria tables and all this, and the Bobby Lamb and them. I can say the name; they can't sue us anymore. Anyway, it'll strike home. So good.
Yeah, it's great to see you.
Yeah, same here. Thanks.
Okay.
Hominis nobiscum.
Et tu spiritu tuo.
Yeah, and congratulations on a great career.
Thank you, you too.
So Tom and Joanna was part of MarshStream too.
See that?
on our Solo Arts Heal a week ago, one of our programs about solo arts and healing and health. And Joanna did one of our shows.
I guess all roads do lead to Rome.
Yeah,
Yeah,
eventually.
eventually.
Yeah.
I think another question here is they want to know when they can get the audio version. I'm assuming that's not out yet. But
No, you know what? I and you can tell you need to really rehearse it. And I want it technically to be good. So whenever the virus gets resolved, whenever we can do what we do with it, I think I would, go to a studio. Just that, I think it should be a professional sound, so that might be a few months down the road before that happens.
And you can read it at the Marsh, do some performances of it at the Marsh to get good.
Oh yeah, you can do that, just like we're doing now. Yeah. But it's good to be prepped,
You're right.
You want to read it like you sound and all.
Right.
All right.
Is there any other questions?
Let's see, Tom. Harry Bernstein asked, do you have any thoughts or reminiscences about gay comedy shows at the Valencia Rose?
Yeah, I do. And I do write about that. Thanks for the question. That was another transformative thing. You always wanted to get up on stage and you couldn't, and homophobia and whatever. And to have that opportunity at the Rose. And we started, it was a funeral parlor down the street from the Marsh. And people didn't know what it was. They said, what is gay comedy? I said, well, I don't really know. But, I want to do stand-up in places like the Other and the Holy City Zoo and all them. The audiences were pretty homophobic. I mean, girl, they were not ready. They could make fag jokes. But so we tapped into something, Ron Lanza and Donald Montwill and all that maybe there could be an audience for this, even though we were unsure. So I didn't even know how to use a microphone because we didn't have money for a microphone. But we attracted a couple of people, some of them totally insane. And we established some rules. We didn't want to hear fag jokes or racial jokes or anything like that. And Valencia Street always had not an issue, but it always had walk-by traffic. It always had pedestrian traffic, even back in the day. And then they gussied the place up. It was still bare bones, but they painted it pink. And the fact that it had been a funeral parlor. So out of all that came these creative people. And if you remember Lip Synca, Whoopi Goldberg, Donald Montwill was a brilliant booker, and Ron Lanza really had so much creative energy. And Hank Wilson, God love him, sometimes he had to bring over $10 so that we could meet the payroll. It was wonderful experience. And, some people are still around and performing. So what a gift. I always thought, what a gift to me.
Perfect. I think one last question, Stephanie, here is from Evan. What gave you, Tom, the courage to run for office 3 times before you ran and then ultimately won? And then was it a hard decision to run each time?
Well, each one was the first decision when I really got my ass kicked. You just needed to do it for Harvey. Harvey wouldn't have even asked you, but it's the idea of you can kill the messenger, but you're not going to kill the message. And, the school district was pretty fucked up, especially when it came to a lot of social justice issues. So that one was more, I don't care what happens. The second one was more, I care what happens, but I'm going to parody it, And I had been out anyway, doing when we could straight clubs, and it's true, it was always intimidating, but you got through it, and you established a little benchmark. And then the third time was using the skills that I got, through doing stand-up and teaching, and then being informed. AIDS was, it was just percolating then, and I knew there's going to be a lot of problems in the schools with it. So those were the touchstones. And then cumulatively going back to Newark, New Jersey, where I was born, and then my Catholic education, all that, I think added up to that very first step to run for office. A grand chanté for mankind, a small plie for man. All right.
Well, that's wonderful, Tom. Thank you so much for joining me on this MarshStream tonight.
Yeah, this is a great opportunity. I hope people liked it, and we'll look into doing a reading. You know, obviously our health issues have to resolve themselves in such a way that people can gather.
Exactly.
You know, but if we start with small, and you know, sometimes at the march it was small, and it worked just as well. So here's an opportunity.
You are a performance trooper. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you so much, and we'll see you soon, we hope. And if you want to do some more stuff, let us know. And I just want to let everyone know that we're grateful to Tom. And also next week, we're going to have Robert Townsend. Hollywood
Fabulous,
Shuffle.
yeah.
Robert Townsend I will be interviewing him next week. So hope you all come back, go on out and buy Tom Ammiano's kissmygayass.com. That's where you can get it. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. Joey and Mar, I see you. Bye-bye.